Um, have there been any updates on the regulatory side, Alex? Like, what's the current status on the regulatory side?
Yeah, so we have actually talked a bit about that on the latest Starbase update. Just in a brief summary that we did there, but basically the last thing that we know from both the Fish and Wildlife and also the FAA is pretty much what we talked about last week. We basically reached out to both entities and got comments back in I think it's September 18th, so basically about 9 days ago, and the gist of it is that they're still looking at it. They have this biological opinion that they need to complete, the Fish and Wildlife Service. And they have up to, but not entirely all of it, 135 days by law. And yeah, go ahead.
Can I just quickly jump in and say how ridiculous this shot looks? It's like the ship slowly creeping up next to it, being like, hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like, go ahead, go further. I just had to comment on this shot.
It's okay. But yeah, so after that, we've people get a lot of into doomerism and things like that. We see a lot of people being like, oh my gosh, it's going to take the whole 135 days. Even they can, extend that and be for a year or two. Look, we don't know how long it's going to take. If you want to take the experience from the first flight, it took about 40 days. They also needed to do a biological opinion. In that case, it was a completely different thing. It was not any deluge system or anything like it, but still, they had one of those, and they did not get to 135 days. So, whatever you want to think it's going to take, but that's sort of the latest update. The FAA thinks that at least their part, which is the sort of the license review, it's going to take at least until the middle to the end of October. That's sort of the latest that we've seen from them. And so that's the latest update, pretty much. And everyone out there watching can have their own sort of thinking on how long that's going to take for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm not pessimistic. I'm more optimistic and think they'll probably have a shot at November.
Yeah, I also think November. Also, it's quite insane how fast this moves. Like, they are already halfway up with it. It's ridiculous. And there we see the S-25. That's the one that is on the wrong orientation, right? Because if you imagine it doing a belly flop, that would be upside down.
Yeah, I don't know who applied them, but I want them to feel shame, because even though the ship stopped, it should be the other way around. It looks so wrong.
Looks like it stopped now, yeah.
Yep. It stopped.
See, this is what I told before, where they're like, oh, we're gonna lift a bit, we're gonna swing, and then we're gonna lift again, and now we're gonna swing. So we'll probably see them, swinging or rotating it, I guess is the word, to either left or right. We'll see where it goes, but that's sort of how it tends to be.
Apparently there was a sound before it stopped, so we'll have to wait and see what happened there, but the chopsticks have come to a stop. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here, but for now the chopsticks have stopped movement, and we'll see what happens here. And as of now, they have stopped halfway up. We'll report if we know more here. Is this usual, Alex? Do they sometimes stop halfway up?
Yeah, they normally do this.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. We are working on what we can get for you. Of course, this also means we can look at Raptors.
Now. It's rotating over.
See,
okay,
told
so
you.
No big deal, because if they rotate, it's probably fine, right?
Yep.
There we go. So it's sometimes weird which moves they make left to right. It's I don't fully understand that, why they go left first, then go up, then go right again. Honestly, I have no idea. Like
They
anybody
must
up here?
have their. I really have no idea, but they've repeated that multiple times already. So they must have their own reason for that. Because obviously, when you think about lifting the ship, you think, okay, the fastest and simplest way is just lift it up, go all the way up, then swing over to the booster, right, and then go down. That sounds like the simplest way. But for some reason, they do this whole thing of lifting, stopping, then swinging, then it resumes again the lift, and then stops, swings the other way, and lifts again. It's a whole thing. It's very complicated, but somehow that's their preferred method to do it. And now it's going up again.
Going up again. Yeah, it feels like almost like a flex, like them being, look at what we can do with the biggest rocket of all time. I'm just going like left and right.
Just
and now to the left,
point.
and now to the right, and then up.
I want to thank some people here because we got some very generous Red Team membership gifting going on here, and that's always cool to see again. So RC Horseman, very regular here in chat, and also probably one of Chris' favorite people in chat, gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Then we have Daniel Hogbin with 5 Red Team memberships as well. Tom V with 5 Red Team memberships. Paul Logan becoming a Pat Red member. Trappist becoming a Red Team member. White Ford with 10 Red Team memberships. I remember you also did that during Raptorside yesterday, if I recall correctly. So thank you for that, White Ford. Musical Wolves, also very regular here with $4.99 Super Chat. Will there be any testing with the ship, not the booster, once stacked? Do we think there will be any testing with the ship once stacked? I guess the answer is possibly wet dress rehearsal, right?
I think the wet dress rehearsal is the only realistic way to do that. I'm not privy to the booster structural integrity, Alex, so if I'm wrong, correct me, but I don't think it would be wise for them to fill up the ship with liquid oxygen and liquid methane whilst the booster is empty, because historically we've seen some kind of implosion action go on when things like that happen.
Well, I gotta say, they have actually done that. They did it with Ship 24 on Booster 7. Because they had these tests where they partially loaded each vehicle, but then they either... See, now it's pivoting again, or swinging, or rotating, but it stopped, and then it rotates. It's a whole thing. Anyways, they did these tests where they basically loaded the ship, or loaded the booster, either one of the tanks, both the tanks, and then either, both vehicles, etc., etc. The whole thing is that it is not the liquids that hold the structures of the vehicle. So that if Booster 9, if they fully load Ship 25, and Booster 9 is not completely loaded, or it's not loaded at all, it doesn't matter, because it is not the liquid inside of the booster that makes it be pressurized. It is actually the gas inside it. So it just needs to be pressurized with that gas, and so even though it might not be loaded with propellants, it can be loaded with pressurizing gases and keep it strong, which is a really often thing that people say that, it's going to do an SN3 again. And the problem with SN3 is that they depress the tank on the bottom before they actually detank the one on the top. So they remove pressure from the bottom tank instead of removing liquids.
Dino here has a brilliant question, which is, why isn't there a counterweight on the chopsticks, like during on the chopsticks during a lift, like a crane needs? Now, Alex, there's a little on the back of the tower. There's a little kind of bit where they have all the cable wound up. So is there something in there, or is there a kind of a counterweight somewhere?
Well, I will say that the counterweight is pretty much visible there. If you can see, there's like this gray structure about 160 meters tall, 140 meters tall. I don't remember right now. And yeah, the tower is already the counterweight because it's very, very darn heavy. And you can see there those chopsticks going up with the ship. It's going up again for some reason. They're doing these things. But yeah, the tower already acts as the counterweight. It's very, very heavy, so you don't need that kind of thing with these chopsticks. The crane obviously doesn't have that much of a mass attached to it, so that's why they need these counterweights on the crane. So yeah, that's the reason why.
I want to point out here, because I see a lot of people commenting, oh, they're avoiding the chopstick. They're avoiding the chopsticks here, so that's why they do all of these translation maneuvers. But why do they move closer to the the grid fins? Why do they move closer to the grid fins to then move away from them again? Like, I don't think that makes any sense. And also, I don't think they're close enough, so they need to avoid them. It's just, they go left, then they go up, then they decide to go right again. It's like, I mean, there's probably a very good reason for it, but I'm not sure what the reason
Maybe
is.
the wind kind of pushes it over ever so gradually, which is hard to
stop
know.
again.
We can't like notice
right?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe the wind just ever so slightly nudges it, like very, very slowly, so you can't notice it, but over time it kind of drifts over and they just have to correct for it again. I'm not sure.
And now it's moving.
But they go to the left at the beginning, like we saw them. The first thing they do is go to the left. It's a puzzling move, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. What's the maximum speed this can lift? About this, right? This is probably the fastest we have ever seen, like close to the fastest.
I think the only way it can go faster is if those raptors ignited, and we don't want to see that during a lift.
Yeah, let's not ignite the raptors while they are attached to the chopsticks. That's a good way to delay your next orbital flight by some years. Let's could they okay, just to I'm trying to answer questions here about this, because there's also a question, are they avoiding the ship QD? No, the ship QD is kind of on the other side. Like, it's not in the way at all. So and also, they don't do it all the time. We saw them going up straight as well. It's, I don't know. It's a weird thing. Anyway, Todd Miller, thank you for the $10 super chat with no message attached, so I cannot say anything else besides that. Austin with a $5 tip using tip.nasaspaceflight.com. Ship.nasaspaceflight.com. My God. Tips.nasaspaceflight.com. I can't talk today. S25 is doing the electric slide, Cupid shuffle going to the left and then to the right. There's probably a reference here, but the problem is you picked the wrong commentator for a reference. So, I'm sorry. Luca Babnik with a €10 super chat. Very good currency. Do we know how strict the Lunar Starship design is for NASA? Like, can they make the Lunar Starship smaller, not taking into consideration quick disconnect? Ryan, how strict would be these requirements?
I haven't read through the entire contract. I don't know if the entire contract is publicly available. I'm sure if NASA wants some kind of specialist design in order for their HLS systems, then I'm pretty sure that could be accommodated. But the idea is also kind of to build off of the pre-existing Starship launch system, right? So I'm pretty sure SpaceX would want to keep the design as close to the original Starship design as possible, just deleting the flaps, the tiles, and adding new lunar kind of appropriate landing gear in order for a nice soft landing on the moon, especially because of the height of this vehicle is bigger than anything we've ever landed on the moon before, you know. So I'm sure if NASA wanted something specialized, then they could request for it, definitely.
Also, I want to point out again, it's not only the biggest thing humanity ever tried to land on the moon, it's that by a huge margin. Starship is kind of big compared to like the Apollo landers, so yeah. Jim Cabot here with a $5 super chat saying, thanks NSF for the great camera views. Thanks for supporting our great camera views. Also, Liz here with a $40 super chat with no message attached. Thank you so much, Liz, for that. And yeah, nothing else for me to say then. Thank you so much. And also Andy here with a 140 ZAR super chat saying maybe the left and right moves are to reduce the amount of sideways strain on those cables that lift the chopstick up as much as possible. I mean, that's for the best theory I've heard, I would say. Although, I'm not sure. Like, it's probably... Also, I want to point out, look at these raptors.
I really have no idea.
Look at these raptors there below it. It looks so beautiful. It also looks so much more clean than earlier prototypes in terms of what is below this ship, because there were like COPVs there and everything. Where's all of that now, Alex? Like, how did they change the design to make it so much more clean?
Well, there's things already tucked into the, the engine shielding, so it's not out in plain sight, so to speak, right? There's also stuff on the nose cone. We believe they probably have things perhaps on the flap arrow covers. They might have some stuff as well, but we're not fully sure. So yeah, they were able to reduce a lot of the stuff already from the early ships to the ones that we're seeing right now.
Talking while muted. Ryan Weber, our own Ryan Weber here, with a $10 super chat saying, the reason why they move it likely could be that they try to reduce loads on the right actuator that is more extended than the left and to avoid the grid fins. I mean, yeah, I think in general load management might be the best possible guess here. I feel like that might be the reason. I think they almost reached full height here, right? That's as high as they will go.
Yeah.
What's that? Apple lift?
Apple crane.
Yeah, it's like Apple crane, Apple lift. There's probably no technical term for that, but that's what we have.
Yeah, anytime now we'll see that rotating over the booster.
And then the careful placement. Jerry here asking, Ryan, I will throw this to you. Why does the tower not have access arms for the FTS on the booster and ship to eliminate the destacking operations to arm the FTS?
I guess it's just a design feature that they didn't want to add to the tower. We already have the ship QD on one side of the tower. The chopsticks need to be able to go all the way up and all the way down the tower, so anything sticking out would get in the chopstick's way. That wouldn't help at all. I guess they could have some kind of protracting walkway, maybe, but at the end of the day, it is probably easier, instead of installing protracting walkways, to just take the ship off the top of the booster in half an hour, put a lift up to the side, and then do whatever they need to do with the FTS. It's probably the easiest way for them to do it. And also, by having the ship closer to the ground, it's less dangerous. It's a shorter fall, and also they can just use normal lifts, normal cherry pickers that you see like every day, just big ones, and you can just it gives them a bit more flexibility than having just one fixed walkway which they can use.
One question here from Loud Shirt Dude with £2 super chat attached is, does Starship sit on the booster or is it latched? Alex?
Well, there are 3 hooks on the top of the booster. They were already previously there when there was no hot staging ring. Now with the hot stage ring also includes those hooks. It's actually more like a pin. Like each pin then has a hook in the middle that then connects to the ship. But yeah, basically they are latched. It's not that it's just sitting on top of the booster. They are actually latches in the interface. There are 3 of them, and they can hold the whole thing together, because we saw it on the first flight. It really does a good job.
Yeah, I mean, so far we have not seen issues with that system, so let's hope that stays that way, because issues with that system would mean a collapsing stack, and that would be very bad. That's a technical term, but it would be very bad. Let's see what we also have here. Somebody here is saying, I thought they took off the hot staging ring. I'm clearly not in the loop anymore. Ryan, please make sure people that have not paid attention for the last 24 hours What has happened in the last 24 hours that we are suddenly here again with a full stack suit?
Yeah, so, I don't blame you for not watching everything 24 hours every day. It is nice to sleep sometimes. But essentially, what they did was, as you probably saw, they took the hot staging ring off the top of the booster and they put it on the ground. And that means that they can access under the hot staging ring, like in the top of the booster. Because if you didn't know, the hot staging ring doesn't just have the vents on it. It actually has a protective dome, which you can see there looking through the vents here. That protective dome protects all of the things inside of the top of the booster from the exhaust of the Raptors of the ship. So in order to access that, they obviously need to take the ring off, which is why they took the ring off. Now, yesterday we saw them as the ship is kind of approaching the booster now. Yesterday we saw them, the big old Agar 11,000 crane roll over from the suborbital launch site all the way back to the orbital launch pad, lift up the ring and put it back on top of the booster. So they've obviously wrapped up everything that they wanted to do on the top of the booster, which is why they put the ring back on top. And when that happened, they then adjusted the chopsticks to then get ready for the ship lift, which we're watching right now. So that's pretty much a recap of everything we've seen over the last 24 hours.
And if you want a more detailed recap, make sure to check out the next episode of Starbase Update, which will come out next Monday.
And that's going to be Ryan as well.
Sure.
Oh, it's me. Everyone loves me, That's why I'm hosting Starbase Update.
And I have the wonderful task to put words in your mouth, right? So that's gonna be fun. That's always fun. That's the best about being a writer. You can make people say things.
Yeah, because I'll be
powerful
busy
task.
with other things.
Okay, I'm also thanking here Luca Babnik with €5 saying, that was a fast lift. Thanks for the coverage, fellas. It's not over yet. Wait for them to sit them down. Matthew Daw with a $5 super chat. Have they added more pins to connect the ship and booster, or is it still just 3? I think it's like they have not changed that design in any way, right, Alex?
No, they have not added more pins. I was actually going to respond on chat about someone noticing that, there are 6 connection points on the ship, so that means there are 6 hooks and 6 pins, and no, that's actually not what it is. So 3 of those are used by the booster, but all 6 are being used for the transport sense. So the transport sense do have 6 pins with their 6 hooks. I mean, 1 per pin, not that each pin has 6 on them. But the difference is that the transport sense has 6, and 3 of those 6 are being used on the booster, basically. So the booster has 3, the transport sense has 6, so the ship needs 6 connections, basically. So you see all those 6 sort of square holes on the bottom.
There we go. Daniel B here asking, why did the SQD move back before they finished the stack? That's a good question, because the SQD moved back. Why did they move it already back?
It's not needed to be retracted anymore because the chopsticks have already cleared the QD arm. So you can see there that the QD arm is sort of at the top of the booster, whereas the chopsticks are well above that. So they are cleared from that arm, so they can already move the arm to the booster. I mean, to the ship, I guess, but there's no ship yet.
There we go. Let's hit some more question here. Was there any work done on the hot stage ring while it was on the floor, Ryan? Did we see them work on any way on the hot stage ring? Do we see any differences?
I have to be honest, I haven't seen them do anything on there. They might have done some stuff, but I personally haven't seen any camera angles of workers on it. If I'm wrong, please do correct me, but that's just what I've had the opportunity to see over the last day or so.
They seem to be... They seem to be more worried about the top of the booster rather than the hot staging ring.
There we go. The ship is now moving in on top of the booster. So yeah, it's now in its final stages during this lift. And we are closing in here. Beautiful view here on the Raptors, by the way. I am looking forward to see 3 more Raptors below the ship here at some point. Of course, not this ship, but some ship in the future where they will have 9 Raptors instead of 6. So that's gonna be cool.
Let's
Um,
get 6 at least for the time being. Then we're worrying about the other 3 because
Another question, let's just quickly recap the FTS situation here because we are still getting a lot of questioning and people joined here late. Alex, what's the situation with the flight termination system here?
it is not installed. We haven't seen anyone working on it for the last week or 2. How long has it been that they destacked? About 2 weeks, right? More or less. So yeah, in the time being, we haven't really seen anyone working on that. They might have, and they sneak past us. They might have done that without us being fully aware. But either way, we don't think they will be pulling pins, for example, for the flight termination system or anything like it, because they're not launching tomorrow or within 3 days or anything like it. You will see that kind of stuff going on once they are much closer to launch, because otherwise it's very, very dangerous to keep your flight termination system without that physical protection in place.
There we go. So, just to recap, this will not be the last stack of this stack, right? We will expect one more D-stack close to launch, them arming the system, then a restack, and then flight. So, we'll see what this stack will do. So, but it seems like they don't need to do FTS arming yet, because they are probably a few weeks away from launch. We don't expect a launch for at least a few more weeks, based on anything we have heard from the FAA and from Fish and Wildlife Service. Let's see something that we have not asked yet. There's a lot of questions about the FTS here, but I hope we address them all. But right now, I think we have addressed them all. We also tackled this, but I will just throw this for a recap again to you, Ryan. Anthony asking, what's the point in stacking when flight is at least a month away? Why would they stack? What's the expectation here?
Well, SpaceX have clearly got more time than they thought they had because of the regulatory paperwork that they're dealing with at the moment. So why waste the time? Why not put the ship on top of the booster, do some full stack testing, and get even more data? As Jack would say, more data, more better, and it also means that we can get some lovely pictures of the ship on top of the booster, which, is maybe not SpaceX's intended goal, but it is a nice side effect for us.
And we have now this ship over the booster, so the next thing they will do is slowly put this ship down. Because, of course, at this point, you don't want to, bump your Raptors or bump your booster or place this in the wrong angle or something. This is like the really last moment, the last moment move where you make sure that everything is good to go. And I also want to show you something here while we wait for these last moves, because there's something we have in our store if you like Flight 2. We have a special series for Flight 2, which is our second patch for the orbital test flight. And that's not only, you can get this on a patch, as you can see in the top left, but you can get this on t-shirts, on this cool water bottle. I can really only recommend this water bottle. I really love it. On pillows, and we also have metal prints with this with the stack involved. So make sure if you want to show your love for the second flight to maybe get a patch of that, because I think this patch is really, really neat. We kind of wanted to highlight the moment of flight where the stack is still full, because it's like the main part of this flight where we are looking to see if they perform. And of course, if you do that, leave us a message here on stream. You can do that while we are live and can say, hey, this is me and I want to say something. And Patrick coming up here with a very creative way to say something. Oh, he just say chat. There we go. That's all I want to say. Let's go back to the booster here. Alex,
what's going down right now?
Oh, that drone there is, by the way, cruising. That's cool. That's a filming drone, probably, right? Or like a monitoring and filming drone. It's slowly going down, right?
Yep. It's gonna take a while here. Usually takes Like actually, the longest time for them it is the preparation for the lift, and then when the ship is on top of the booster, then it takes I don't know anywhere from 15, 30, maybe even 45 minutes to put it in place in the right position. You know when it is actually in place when the chopsticks stop holding the ship, like the weight of the ship, and you see the whole rocket wobble. Sometimes it is more subtle, sometimes it is more visually unpleasant and scary, but usually you see that sort of little wobble on the whole rocket as it happens. But that's going to be a few more minutes until that happens, because the ship still needs to go down to the booster, connect with the pins, get the hooks on and everything. Until that happens, it's going to be a little bit here.
There we go. So we are very close to the business end of this stream ending, and we can see now. You can see kind of like the holes there where the pins will grab. You can see very clearly over the left pin there. You can see the pin and the hole where the pin will connect to. I also love the drone operator. It seems like the drone operator has really fun right now. They're just flying up and down.
And there's even more things that they need to connect. So it's not only just the pins and the hooks and everything, but they have these engine chill pipes on each side of the vehicle, on the left and on the right. And on the right, you can actually see one of them. You can see one of them, but also another pipe. There's a whole explanation on these pipes and everything on the recent changes video that we did. Previewing sort of what are the new things that we are going to see on the second flight. But either way, these engine chill pipe needs to be connected with the extension on the booster. It has like a long extension on the booster to sort of continue that engine chill pipe down the booster as well. And so those things also need to be connected. You can see sort of there that engine chill pipe on the ship and also on the booster. The extension on the the hot CG ring even has its own extension of the extension. It's hilarious. But yeah, those are the other things that they also need to be carefully aligning as well.
Yeah, like these final meters this is where you can potentially damage hardware. So you really need to make sure that everything is good during this final descent, and to make sure that you don't bend any hardware, because in the end this is like 120 tons or so of ship. If you put this on a pin in the wrong way, it's bented.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it is also a 120 meter tall booster, right? Not booster, rocket in total. When you put the booster and the ship on top, so and then the diameter is 9 meters in diameter. So even just a slight deviation of maybe like 1 degree or so, you think it is maybe not that much, but it's a lot when you're talking about these sizes and these imbalances. At the end of the day, that weight that you're setting on top of the booster, that is then transferred to the clamps on the overall launch mount. So any imbalance that you do on the booster, it also impacts the clamps on the bottom of the booster at the overall launch mount. So you don't want to damage those as well, right? So you need to position everything in the right place, in the right location, so that nothing gets damaged, and every single time they do it better and better and faster.
There we go. Question here from Loud Shirt Dude again with a £2 super chat, asking, would hovering a booster help gathering landing data? Do we think like that would help, and they might do that, Alex?
Well, it will probably help in the sense that you could say to the booster, hey, you're now this sort of altitude and you need to control your descent, or something, like telling it where to go and things like that. Sort of like the same way that Stoke recently tested its Hopper vehicle, and prior to that they had this sort of software going on where they had it tied down, right? They fired the engine, and then they told the engine, you need to control yourself as if your vehicle was flying this other way. I mean, you could do that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, the booster is not going to be hovering. And that's sort of a misconception that because it can hover, it will hover. Hovering does not make the landing more precise. And just look at New Shepard, because it can hover, and it is definitely not as precise as Falcon 9. And Falcon 9 cannot hover, and still is very, very precise, I will say, compared to New Shepard. So, yeah, hovering is not the solution to everything. Just make a better control system.
I will play stupid here, Alex. Why does Falcon 9 cannot hover?
Well, because the thrust that the Merlin can put even at lower throttle, at the lowest throttle setting, it's way higher than the weight of the booster. I think it is something. If you do the math, it is something about 1.4 thrust to weight ratio. So yeah, it's bonkers.
There we go.
The reason I will add that the reason why the super heavy booster can actually do it is because it has 33 engines. So the ratio is that one engine is 1/33 of the whole thrust of the rocket, of the booster. So obviously, if you have, for example, 3 of them on, that will be 1/11 of the whole thrust. Whereas for the booster, for Falcon 9, it has 9 engines in total, so one engine will be 1/9. So even the lowest amount of number of engines that you can have on Falcon 9, it is a higher ratio than on the booster with just 3 engines igniting. So you can have more control of the hovering and everything. You can have that as an option.
It kind of really puts into perspective how lightweight these boosters are when they come in for a landing, right? Especially like Falcon 9. If these are empty, there's no mass left from what initially was in these boosters. So
at least compared to the liftoff, because super heavy is definitely not lightweight. But compared to the thrust of the Raptors, it is very, very powerful. And then they also need to lift off a 5,000-ton rocket at liftoff, because it also is not only the booster but also the ship. You can see it is in its glory there, almost fully stacked now. It's only a few centimeters off.
Do we actually know the dry mass of a Falcon 9 at landing, like with the bit of propellant left? Like, do you know that out of your head? What's the rough dry mass of that?
Well, there's some different numbers out there, but generally it is sort of between 20 and 25 tons for the dry mass of the Falcon 9 booster, and perhaps maybe add 1 more ton for propellant residuals and things like that. Super heavy, it is about 10 times more. It is from 200 to 250 tons in terms of dry mass, and maybe 10-20 tons of residual propellant on the booster tanks. It's going to be a lot of weight. But Raptor is very powerful. It's 230 tons at full throttle.
Yeah, 3 Raptors would be about the thrust of like the full Falcon 9, right? Wasn't it like that? Like 3 or 4 Raptors?
No, the other way around. So you mean 1 Raptor is 3 or 4 Merlins?
Yeah, sorry, like 3 or 4 Raptors would be the full thrust of a Falcon 9.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Yes. I can actually do the math right now here. I have my calculator out, because after the incident before, I actually took it out just to make sure.
You got it. You already have Alex calculate out.
It will be 3.36 Raptors for a Falcon 9.
There we go. That's like great. That shows you how powerful Raptor is, and it has quite a low footprint for the fact how powerful it is, right? It's kind of impressive how powerful this engine is in engine to diameter ratio. So we are in the final decimeters of this lift, as they are very gently now putting ship 25 on top of booster 9. You can see there right now they are kind of aligning these pins with the openings in the ship, and they are very, very close to putting it down. It's probably just minutes away here, as it's hovering kind of over the final placement they need. And we are just waiting for it. I think it's even like they're still closing in, right? It's just very, very slow.
Yeah, it's very slow. And It needs to go down in the right location, in the right place. It will be very interesting if we see those hooks removed, because we can see that pin straight down the middle on the booster hot stage ring, and that hook should be retracting any moment now in the middle. So that pin that you can see there on top of the hot staging ring, it has a hook in the middle.
Yeah.
That's present on all 3 pins on the hot staging ring, and that hook should be retracted ahead of the ship being lowered. At least that's what I think should happen here, because otherwise the ship might not be able to be inserted into that pin. Or rather, the other way around, but yeah.
There's an interesting question here that I even don't know the answer, and I'm not sure if you do. 10 pounds here from Balkan Having asking, when Starship is human rated and humans are on board, will it still have an FTS? So, would it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? The booster will definitely need to have it, but the ship, yeah, it's sort of a up in the air kind of question there. Because obviously Falcon 9, for example, has it, but Dragon itself doesn't. Dragon doesn't have any sort of flight simulation system, because it is a rocket, the one that has it. Whereas here on Starship, you have both the crew compartment and the rocket integrated on the same thing in the Starship. So, yeah, that's a great question. I don't think we know just yet what's going to happen. Yeah. Ooh, look at that.
Ooh, that's a fancy.
Yeah, we even had the transition and everything.
Yep. There we go. That's the final centimeters here. We are very close here to having a full stack. Of course, with this much of zoom, you get a lot of heat distortion, but it's still a cool close up here to have. So
you can kind of see that hook in the middle, I think.
Yeah, you also can see how it slowly closes in, right? Like it's just centimeter by centimeter. Oh wow, this is cool. This is cool. We are getting very, very close here to having a full stack. Again, I should say this is the second time this stack is full stack, right, Alex? And we expect a third time. We expect one more. So we'll see. We'll see how soon that might be. But again, this flow is still very much optimized from the first stack. If you look at Booster 7 and Ship 24, that took all a bit longer. The test campaign took longer. So far, we had not added any spin prime anomalies on the booster, and we do not expect that anymore. So they accelerated this test campaign, and we'll see how the final stretch here goes before we will hopefully see a launch of the second stack very, very soon. As in weeks very soon and not days very soon. Just to point that out, we are not we are not counting days yet. We don't have any indication so far when that might be.
Oh, there we go. Even with the fancy transition and everything.
Just waiting for the final movement here. They are probably like that's some. I bet they're like in the control room.
I think it actually retracted now, because there's a larger gap from the bottom of the hook to the top than before.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe it actually retracted.
You can also see the ship still slightly swinging a bit sometimes. And of course you don't want that movement. Every movement of this ship right now is still a lot of force applied. So we'll see how. Oh, I think it moved, right? I think the hook just moved. It looked like the hook just moved.
Well, let me see. I think it did.
Yeah, I think it just
There's
opened,
so many,
right?
There's so many cameras right now that it's kind of hard to look into all of the things. But I'm doing A/B checks here. I think it opened.
So That's probably a good sign. If they open these hooks, that means they're getting ready to place it. So we expect a placement here at any moment now, hopefully. Do we think or expect another full test fire of the booster, Alex?
Well, maybe if SpaceX considers that to be of use, then they might, but it all comes down to whatever they think might be useful or not, and it might not be useful maybe, because if they have already done one and they sort of got the data that they needed and the one that they were comfortable with, maybe doing another one that might not be the best thing, because then you're putting more strain on the engines, right, on the pad systems, and maybe not the best idea in that case. Probably, I don't know, but no SpaceX engineer in that case.
I want to thank some people here. I want to thank Dan for the $10 super chat saying, always appreciate the great work all. Thanks, Dan, for supporting that. Subatomic Vulcan with a $10 super chat saying, with the grid fins so close to the hot staging ring, do you think they would take any damage from the thrust of the ship during separation? Alex, do you think there will be damage from the ship on the grid fins?
Good question, but then again, we can see so you can see, for example, the places where these RVACs are located. In this side of the vehicle, there's one Raptor vacuum on this side, so it will be actually in between both grid fins. And then on the other side, it is true that the other grid fins are going to have it a little bit more dangerous in their case, because the RVACs are closer to them in the other side. But I don't know, the shield there kind of gives the impression that it might go sideways rather than down, especially when you take into account how basically expanded the exhaust will be at that height. So you see, once the rockets go up and you see these exhaust expansion, it's going to be way expanded when they are out there near vacuum, and so it's still not clear if it's going to impinge on the grid fins or not. Maybe they will not be damaged, but we'll see.
Plutonium239 with $5 super chat saying, what is the reason for leaving the rocket stacked when the FAA and Filtration Wildlife Service is going to hold up the launch? Something needs to be done. So, just to address this, as of now, the FAA and the Fish and Wildlife Service are not holding up the launch. They are just doing their regulatory and correct process to make sure that environment and humans are protected. They are not, they don't have an agenda. They don't hold up SpaceX. They just do what they have to do. So just to address that, and the reason why we think they do a full stack is to gather more data, potentially perform some more testing, like a wet dress rehearsal. That's the potential reasons why they stack this. Just to address the two things that are here.
And to add to what you said, go ahead, Adrian.
No, go ahead.
No, what I was about to say is that people say, oh well, but there's interests and things like that. Look, this process needs to be done for every single company, and the reason you don't see it being with other single company, that you see articles and people complaining and things like that, is because the Starship is a very exciting rocket, right? Everyone wants to see it launched, and so every paperwork side that is getting sort of in the way, or seems to be getting in the way, or needs to be done before a flight, it gets way more, amplified in that sense, because these issues have been going through ABL, Reactivity, even ULA, Rocket Lab. All of these companies need to do the same thing, same FAA approvals. If they have any environmental issues, they need to go with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Everyone needs to go through the same laws and the same requirements and same regulations. The only thing different here is that obviously we are all very excited for Starship to launch, and it's really a bit annoyance, but just gotta get it done, because otherwise there's no other way to do
big
things.
Drone.
Yeah.
But we just want to point out again. Right now, it doesn't look like SpaceX is any way more delayed than any other company or that ever got a mishap investigation for their rocket mishap. And again, they had a rocket mishap on the first flight, so that was triggered as a mishap investigation. Juan with a €10 super chat saying, "Is it me or have they also replaced some heat tiles on the ship? Some tiles are significantly darker or look new." Alex, have they replaced some tiles?
They replaced a bit. A bit. When I say a bit, I mean a few. My English kind of failing here. But yeah, they replaced a couple of them. They seem to have also installed a couple of tiles that were a bit broken. And yeah, they probably took that advantage of having the ship on near the ground to just touch it a little bit here and there and get it pretty bit more.
Yeah, there we go. It's sometimes there's some replacement. Of course, the obvious ones they replaced are at the top, where they replaced the crane lifting points a bit later than everything else. But yeah, it's sometimes they tend to change these a bit, and we'll see. Jeff with a storm message here saying, "Just bought the OFT2 mug. What a great image. You guys are rocket stars." Thank you so much, and I will make sure that Pauline also gets to know that because she designed that badge. Thank you to Pauline for making sure we have this amazing design. They are still holding at the same point where they hold now for about 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, I'm doing A/B checks here, and they seem to have been adjusting a bit the position of the ship on top of the booster. So doing slight adjustments and also lowering it a little bit. But this is still not, like the pins have still not gone into the holes. It's almost there though. Almost there.
You really don't want to place this wrong. It's understandable that they're going slow. It would be quite horrible if they would place this wrong. So, yeah, you can see it, but I think it's moving closer now again, right?
Yep.
It's not an optical illusion, right? They're moving closer. They're moving in here. Yeah, for sure. This is getting closer again. They're trying again. There's the drone, checking the gap, making sure everything looks good. We'll see how it will look. But again, we are just standing by here for the final centimeters here for the ship 25 and booster 9 stack. Roadap here asking, what will be the fuel load up time as there now increase in kettle boilers at the tank farm? Alex, I know we addressed it before. I want to address this.
Yeah, so for the second flight, these sub-coolers and pumps are still not hooked up, so they're not going to be used for the second flight, but for subsequent flights, they might be used. We're not fully sure when they're going to be fully hooked up to the tank farm and everything. They are just installed, they are in place, but they haven't done all the connections and everything, so it's going to be probably not on the second flight, because for that, they will need to test that, and you really don't want to be testing that with a booster and a ship hooked up to your tank farm, because otherwise all of the impurities and everything go to the booster and the ship. So yeah, so perhaps for the third flight, hopefully when that happens, they might lower down to maybe 45-50 minutes of propellant load times,
which is quite insane for this rocket because it's so big. It's such a big rocket. Since the last stack, have there been any changes made to the SQD? Were there any more modifications on the ship 2D?
Well, since the last stack, no, I haven't seen really anything new on the ship quick disconnect. I don't really remember anything else new that might have been added. Obviously, since the last, if they talk about the last stack as in the last full starship that flew, aka Ship 24 and Booster 7, yes, there's been upgrades, there's been changes. We covered all of those on the recent video about those changes, but basically the quick disconnect had to be raised just a little bit, about 6 feet, one whole ring up, and also it got a new door. Now they have a door to be able to protect the umbilicals. So it has this little thing. Once it retracts and pulls out from the ship, it swings over, and then it basically protects the umbilical connections from any fire pits.
You can see how there's just barely a gap between ship and booster here anymore. It's really close. I mean, we have been saying this for a long time now, but again, it's a quite. But yeah, they're moving closer here. You can see it again. They're just hovering above it. It's very, very close here to completing this full stack. Lotter's asking, how quick will these stacks and checks happen when the Starship becomes operational? Alex, do you think this will go any faster once they are operational?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're getting to right now, where every single flight, every single time they stack, every single check that they do, it is actually done quicker and quicker, because they have all of these processes. You know, they have done them many, many times already, so they have these processes way down right now. And yeah, it's getting already faster and faster.
Yep.
I just wouldn't be able to say how quick, though.
Yeah, it's a good question how fast they might go. But of course, it's also a question how long they will do certain tests, like a cryo test or a spin prime or a static fire. We have seen them optimizing the flow with Falcon 9, so we'll see how they will do it with Starship. What's the testing they're now doing with Falcon 9, by the way, Alex? Like, what's the usual test the Falcon 9 booster has to do before becoming operational and before every launch?
Well, before every launch, they ran it through McGregor. They have that test stand for boosters and also for the second stages. They do a cryo test for every booster, and then they run, I think it is about 70 seconds of an engine test on the booster, basically holding it down and static firing for 70 seconds or so. I don't know the exact number, though. I know I'm going to have people from McGregor Live pinging me and being like, it's actually 77.30 something seconds or something. I don't know. But yeah, it is about that sort of amount of time. And once they do that, they roll it off to the launch site. And then at the launch site, it performs its first flight and never leaves unless it moves from one side to the other of the country, from maybe Florida to Vandenberg or vice versa. But usually once it already performs its first flight, it doesn't come back to McGregor.
There we go. And we, of course, will see such an optimized flow for Starship at some point as well. And I mean, this is also part of the test program, right? This is also the part of the program where they find out what they can skip, what they need, what's the perfect operations. It's just part of it. And in the end, that's what they need to figure out here. So we'll see how this program evolves over time. I would argue that Starship right now is probably in an even earlier state than Falcon 9 was for the first operational mission. So you will see a lot of change on this hardware over the years. There will be changes. So we'll see what happens here. Jalmer asking, what was the brown smoke with the last 33 engine static fire of Booster 9? Or do we see another rock tornado with the second launch? So, Alex, was there like brown smoke, and what was that?
The brown smoke? I don't really remember anything like it happening on that test.
Yeah, I
guess it's just
there's some dust. I mean, there was some dust kicked up, but besides that, nothing. Nothing I recall in particular that looked like out of the ordinary. It looked even cleaner, like, because there was less dust, right? And there was also the deluge system kicked in. If you compare it to, for example, Booster 7 static fires, there was like less things were kicked up. So Predeep asking, is there any design changes in Starship that can be made to occupy more payload capacity, human capacity? Can booster size be decreased? Any thoughts on this? So, Alex, how would you increase payload capacity on Starship? Like, what would be the steps?
Well, just seeing that gap is getting very, very smaller. But yeah, well, you can do a lot of stuff if you extend the tankage of the ship, basically stretching the tanks on the ship, perhaps a few more rings here and there. The good thing of that is that it will only affect these lifts operations. For example, the QD arm will not need any modification because you're extending the part that is already above it, so you don't change that. And basically the whole chopsticks thing, they can just put it on a, like the lifting points can be just lower on the ship. Maybe you put it on the tankage itself, maybe, I don't know, but you can work around that, right? So I think the easiest way will probably be adding more propellant to the ship, and the very next thing will be to either add more thrust to the booster so that you have less gravity drag and things like that. It seems like that gap is getting very, very close to not being there. Still seems like there's a bit to go on the right. Might be my eye though.
Yeah, but I think we are very close to a full stack here. It seems like they're settling down now. Is that do we call this down?
Well, I will call it down until I see also that right hand side, it doesn't look like it is as set down as probably the left hand side. It's such a big vehicle that it might be set down on one side, but probably not entirely on the other side. I still see the engine chill pipe is still, it's sticking out when it should be down. So maybe, but yeah.
Yeah.
The real deal will be when we see that wobble. That's gonna be when we see that. Okay, now the ship is out of the grip of the chopsticks.
Yeah. It's certainly getting close here. So we're just getting to the very, very end of this at this point. Why did SpaceX go from storing Starship with flaps closed to storing them with flaps opened?
No, I don't understand that.
I think basically the question is, why are the flaps open right now?
Well, the flaps are open right now because they stacked with the flaps open. The only time they stacked with the flaps retracted was with the first stacking that they did with Frankencrane. Remember that one? That was a really weird one with Ship 20 on top of Booster 4. But ever since then, every other stack has been with the chopsticks, and the flaps have been deployed. So, as well as storing them, it kind of depends. Some ships have been stored with the flaps closed, or maybe the aft flaps closed but the forward flaps open, or the other way around, or it's there's so many differences here in the kind of storing of these vehicles that they have done that I don't know. Not sure if there's any sort of reasoning behind all of that.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons right now they have the flaps open is because they cannot chain them anymore while at the top. And then, you wouldn't like to operate opening the flaps probably at that height. That sounds a bit peculiar and a bit dangerous. So we'll see. We'll see how that changes over time. But I'm not sure. Are we calling this down, Alex? Very close to down. If not, that looks down to me.
The cheeky zoom here.
Yeah, it's really hard to to call, but I would call this down. So Chris Bergen in the back channel also calling it down. I think that's as official as we get. So I would think we call this down, right?
Sure. I mean, I'm still waiting for the wobble. It really surprised me the last time that we saw it.
Yeah, it's maybe they fixed it and we no longer have to wobble. So we'll see. But I think we are through with most of the motion here.
Someone said, "Listen for the click."
I mean, there will not be like an audible like clicking noise like in Case B when you attach parts. That's not how it happens. I'm sorry for that, but that's sadly not the reality.
Yeah, I still see some slight gap on the left here. You can see the other not quick disconnect. I was gonna say engine chill pipe on the left. We can see one of them on the other camera, and on this camera we can see the one on the other side of the vehicle. It looks like that side of the vehicle is not fully set down for some reason. Like you can see there's a little gap. I'm not sure if there's some kind of issue that is always like not fully set in that sense.
I think we
yeah.
It might also be just a bit of an optical illusion sometimes because we look at it at an angle. I think there's a lot of factors here in play that might change this, and we'll see. I want to thank some more people here. Rick Steffens with a Pat Red membership, thank you so much. Ryan with gifting a Red Team membership, thank you for that. And also RC Hostman with another Red Team membership gifted. Thank you for that. And with that, can we get like one more shot of our new full stack again? You
know what? They've moved now, and I don't see any gaps whatsoever now. They
so
moved
we're calling
the ship.
This down?
Yeah, now I'm calling it.
There we go.
Because I saw them, closing that gap on the other side of the vehicles, and now I even can see the chill pipes for the engines on the ship already connected to the booster side.
Dan, I want to thank some people here because this concludes our full stack stream. And just to summarize again, this is a full stack stream, and this is a full stack now of the next flight stack of Starship. However, this is not a full stack. What we expect here is them conducting whatever they want to conduct with this full stack. Everything from some structural tests to maybe a wet dress rehearsal, we just don't know. And closer to launch, we will then expect a final D-stack for flight termination system arming, and then a restack. So this is not the final stack. However, it feels very good to have a full stack again on the pad here, I would say. So that's what we wanted to cover here. The next thing that will happen is the ship QD moving in. They will connect that. Then the chopstick will probably detach at some point. And with that, the full stack operations will be completed, and we finally have this wonderful view again of a giant starship on the pad. I want to give a special shout out to a video we released recently with our news daily. So maybe you have missed some things in the last few days, especially leading up to the stacks. And if you thought you missed something before this, make sure to check out the recent daily that we have published. There's a a ton of movement right now going on in Starbase, especially around upcoming flight types, like, for example, Ship 28, Ship 29, and so forth. So many things happening at Starbase, and you cannot always catch everything on SBL, so that's why we also have our daily our update videos from Boca, where you can see everything. And with that, I want to thank Alex for being with me here and making sure we commentate this full stack stream.
Yeah, it's always good to see a full stack back on the pad.
For sure. I also want to thank Ryan, who was first on with us as a commentator and later took the reins of operating the stream. So thank you for that, Ryan. And I also want to thank Patrick Cahoon, who was earlier the operator. So we had quite a team here involved. And also I want to thank our SPL operators behind the scenes. I think Andrew R moved some cameras, and also Gage, and just in general, making sure that we have some camera movement here. It's a lot of things that need to happen for making these streams possible. So thank you all for being involved. And with that, I think we are done here, and I will throw you all to other content we have on this channel, and see you all next time something happens in Starbase or at the Cape or whenever. See you at the next stream.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, Atlantis.
Water tower, fly!
Tango down to nominal. Flighting down to FTE off. Bring in FTE off. Off. It's orange! 145! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at that!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle. 343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.